Pete, and Paul, on behalf of the ladies of Group 1, we would like to thank you for taking the time to hear our proposal, and we hope that we leave you feeling as excited as we are about the future of Bears R Us. We all admire the goals of your organization, and we echo your mission statement and believe that the grizzly bear is both a beautiful and crucial part of our natural world, and as such they deserve our respect, admiration, and protection. Now, you have worked tirelessly to protect grizzly bears and educate the public about these extraordinary animals, and we see the potential for Bears R Us to do even more to further this cause. And we know the process of incorporation might be intimidating, but we are here to help, to support you and grizzly bears everywhere. You have done phenomenal work building Bears R Us, and as the organization continues to grow, it is time to follow former structure. And we want to take the opportunity to share with you why incorporating would be a great move. Now is the time to formally introduce Bears R Us to the market and begin turning profits and expanding to new market areas. A formal incorporation will help protect Bears R Us and its officers, as well as create new opportunities for vitality and growth. We recommend formally restructuring your company into a C corporation, and though there are many forms of business you could create, we believe a C corporation is the most beneficial for your organization. And the process does not have to be overwhelming, as we will guide you through the simple steps of filing your articles of incorporation, writing your bylaws, cover additional documents to consider, and review the tax filing considerations. Now, you may not have realized what great risk your personal assets are in right now, but without the protection of a C corporation, you could be held personally liable for the contracts and debts of the organization. However, because a C corporation exists as a legal entity separate from its owners and or officers, your personal assets cannot be pursued to satisfy the corporation's contracts, debts, or civil actions. You could only be held liable to the extent of your capital contributions. And as a fictitious legal person, Bears R Us can enter into contracts, sue and be sued, and even be found civilly or criminally liable, independent of you, Pete and Paul. However, it is important to note that officers can be held personally liable for their torts towards the corporation. Now, while these may be hard realities to think about, it is important to protect all parties involved and ensure the lasting success of Bears R Us. In addition to protecting your personal assets, C corporations carry other benefits, such as the freedom to transfer shares. Since the shareholders are owners in the business, they have the right and ability to transfer their shares, and this transfer will not have any effect on the corporation. Simply a change in shareholders occurs. Although the shareholders are not required to obtain permission from other shareholders prior to such transfers, as the creators of the business, you reserve the right to outline criteria in the bylaws. Now, we all want to see Bears R Us succeed and expand, and as a C corporation, you will have more access to funding than smaller, less reputable businesses, which will be a valuable advantage for future growth, because you will be less constrained by the accessibility of funds. And as Bears R Us continues to grow, another benefit of a C corporation would be the centralization of a management structure, which will give you the opportunity to elect competent directors and officers who can use their expertise to provide a centralized management structure that can contribute simplified approval processes and streamlined growth. In choosing to create a C corporation, you will be able to leave behind a lasting legacy. And after all the hard work and effort that has already been contributed to building Bears R Us, as a corporation, you are ensuring that hard work can live on. We want to see Bears R Us protecting grizzly bears for generations to come. Now, there are a few obstacles to consider when discussing the legal ramifications of a C corporation filing. We want to ensure that you have all the information as you make this important decision. So we'll take a moment to discuss possible impediments One of the plausible impediments of a C corporation is the tax structure. The corporation's profits would be taxed at the corporate level. In the state of Colorado, there is a 4.63 flat rate income tax for corporations, according to Steinhold. Subsequently, it is taxed to the shareholders when distributed as dividends. There are initial filing fees to incorporate the business. And the last impediment would be that we'd like you to consider in the Securities and Exchange Commission requires annual reporting that is publicly available, meaning competitors will have access. This is a very common corporate practice, but you would need to decide if it is the right fit for Bears R Us. Now that we have reviewed the benefits and impediments to establishing Bears R Us as a C corporation, we're going to review the documents and filing requirements for the state of Colorado in more detail. In his book published in 2006, Essentials of Business and Online Commerce Law, Cheeseman states that a corporate charter must be drafted and approved by the state before the business can be incorporated. Bears R Us will be required to file articles of incorporation and submit the form online to the Secretary of the State for Colorado with the following information available: the domestic entity name, which must meet the listed requirements for a corporation name, the number of shares the corporation will be authorized to issue, the address of the corporation's initial registered office and the name of the initial registered agent, and the name and address of each incorporator, which in this case would be you, Pete and Paul. Since you are converting your business structure, you will also be required to complete a statement of conversion, also online with the Secretary of the State. This form will require information about both the converting entity and the resulting entity. The information is outlined here on the slides. The converting entity is the old business and the resulting entity is the new business. There are additional filing recommendations that we would like to make. For instance, it would be ideal to establish bylaws for the corporation, to register a website domain, and to establish a registration with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Each of these criteria we will discuss in more detail on the following slides. As the incorporators, you reserve the right to outline and write bylaws for Bears R Us. The bylaws, which are binding on the officers, directors, and shareholders, will establish the internal management of Bears R Us. They cannot be inconsistent with anything taking precedence over them, such as the law and the Articles of Incorporation. Cheeseman identifies the information bylaws should include as follows: guidelines for both the annual and special meetings of the officers, directors, and shareholders, including how and when they should be called. Guidelines for directors that establish the number of directors the corporation will have, the terms they will be able to serve, and the power the board will have over determining or changing this criteria. Guidelines for amending the bylaws can be established alongside election and voting guidelines that determine the amount and representation that must be present for voting to occur, the location of the records of the corporation, and they establish the committees of the board of directors. In addition to establishing these committees, they also outline the duties that the committees hold. Moving along to the website domain and Securities and Exchange Commission recommendations, we recommend that you establish an online website in the company name in order to advertise your new business and its structure. This requires a domain name to be registered, and there is generally a fee of less than $50 to complete. This domain registration also ensures the security of your company name, because no one can lawfully establish a website under your domain. This will provide some protection to the corporation from fraud, while giving the world access to the company. by helping to reach more market areas. The Securities and Exchange Commission regulates securities such as stock and bonds according to Farrell, Hurt, and Farrell. The Securities and Exchange Act of 1934 empowers the Securities and Exchange Commission and outlines their responsibilities. A registration statement for the Securities and Exchange Commission is required so Bears R Us can sell securities and any accompanying prospectus. This information is available to the public with the intention to disclose information and to prevent fraud in securities. Let's take a moment to discuss new and departing participants for your corporation. Since corporations finance their business through equity securities and debt securities, Bears R Us would be able to sell equity securities such as common stock and preferred stock, allowing individuals to invest in your company and receive part ownership equal to the percentage of their investment in Bears R Us. In return, these securities can be used to fund the operations of Bears R Us and turn profits, which will be issued to shareholders in dividends based on the bylaws you create. Any shareholder looking to depart from the corporation may do so by transferring stock. There's no need to fret, as these transfers can be simple. Farrell, Hurt, and Farrell state that stockholders can sell or trade shares of stock to other people without causing termination of the corporation, and they can do this without prior approval of other shareholders. Although approval is not traditionally required, as the incorporators, you do still reserve the right to determine any approval guidelines in the bylaws. Recall that one of the impediments we discussed earlier to restructuring your company as a C corporation is the double tax concerns that C corporations face. However, with the tax considerations, we have outlined in more detail other information affecting Bears R Us and you, Pete and Paul. Bears R Us will be required to file a separate tax return conforming to the IRS regulations on Form 1120. To ensure compliance with regulations, we recommend completing this with a professional accountant. As the owners, both of you will also be required to file your dividends, but this is not required until they are paid out, at which point they must be filed on your personal tax returns. This is where the concern of double taxation really comes into play. However, according to Kamroff, these dividends are taxed as capital gains, which means they are subject to a lower tax rate. Bears R Us can also claim deductions, such as employee medical expenses and salaries. Since a corporation has the legal ability to retain up to $250,000 of undistributed profits within the company, these profits do not have to be paid out to the owners and can instead be reinvested into the corporation. However, the corporation pays income tax on these retained earnings. Nonetheless, with the structure of a C corporation, everyone benefits from the profits: the partners, the owners, and the corporation itself. Once again, on behalf of the ladies in Group 1, we hope that you see what a bright future Bears R Us can have with the benefits that a C corporation restructuring has to offer. And we will be here to continue guiding you through the process once you make the decision to incorporate. We've given you a lot of information to consider, and we hope that the fear of double taxation does not cloud your judgment on the additional benefits of personal asset protection, the opportunities for raising capital, and the profits benefiting all involved parties. We are excited to help Bears R Us further its mission to protect grizzly bears. Thank you.